Welcome back to This Week in Indies. The hardest sustainable obstacle of the creative output for oneself is when financial needs outweigh the practical ones. Then suddenly we are faced with the million-dollar question: how do we reach our audience directly? Do we crowdfund? Ask them to subscribe to an extra service? Do we sell our asses off in person, get them directly in front of the source material? We will explore all of these options and examine our own comfort levels when it comes to direct sales. Then Joe Compton brings you indie films you might enjoy if you're a fan of Tim Burton's Ed Wood, celebrating its 30th anniversary this week. After we hit the Go Indie Now minute, we will directly entice you with our epilogue. So what kind of books do you like to read? Because we have them. This Week in Indies, with your host, Joe Compton. Hello, everybody, and welcome to This Week in Indies. I am Joe Compton. Just one side note, you might have saw Courtney in the graphic there. I didn't have the heart to take her out of it. She told me a couple days ago she wasn't going to be here. But regardless, I thought it was nice. We haven't had Courtney in a graphic in a while, so we'll just keep her there for now. But she is not here this week. But everybody else is, and I'm real excited about that. And you can see their lovely faces. There we go. All right. And Mr. Jim screwed everything up as usual.
That's my job, right?
Yes.
I was trying to fix something. I hit the wrong. I was trying to fix now I'm fading away. That
right,
helps.
There we go. Everybody.
Now I want to write spicy notes. So.
Well, I do feel comfortable next to superheroes, so I'm good.
Try to fix something, you break everything
there we go.
more.
That was a quick game of musical chairs.
Yeah.
Vanessa's on time for once, and it's nice to see you, Vanessa. No worries about leaving early. You can catch the rest of it later. And I'm really bad about doing this, so I'm going to do this real quick. There's a little pitch here. So everybody out there, you can send us a star via Facebook. You just do that in the comments. It says a little star thing, and then you just click on a star. By sending us a star, you let the producers know how much you appreciate what we do here at Go Indie Now. And every time you contribute, you get entered into our season-ending gift card package, which is one lucky winner will receive a $25 Amazon gift card, a $25 Bandcamp gift card to get the best indie music out there. Or you can do that one or the $25 drive-through RPG card. So if you're a gamer and not a music lover, then you can get one or the other. And then you get the best in indie gaming or the best in indie music. And a Go Indie Now t-shirt or mug. And a selection of ebooks from some of our guests and hosts that will donate some books for us. All right. So that being said, we appreciate all of that. And welcome to the show. We've got a really great show for you today. We're going to be talking about how we make money. I think that's pretty much how this is going to go. And we've got a great epilogue. I also have a sneak preview of something that I've been holding on to for a little bit. And of course, the Indie Film Connection, which we'll all get to later. Before we do all of that wonderful stuff, let's have everybody go around the room and introduce themselves. I'll start with the money man himself, Mr. Jim Nettles.
I'm Jim Nettles. I write a bunch of science fiction, urban fantasy, some horror, this, that, and the other, as well as a lot of nonfiction kind of stuff. We actually teach workshops on some of the things that we'll be talking about today. I'm one of the founders over at the Continual Convention, where we talk about things like this and same sort of stuff and nonsense we do over here on Go Indie. And I'm probably involved in about 12 other things I'm not thinking about at the moment.
Nice.
And I'm going to be fading in and out, apparently. But,
in a ducky shirt, too, which is really
in the ducky shirt. I did this just for you, Joe. Just for you.
Awesome. All right, Ariel.
Hi, I'm Ariel Dawn. I'm primarily known for my Monsters of Ashwood series, which I'll probably be talking about today. But I write a little bit of everything from monster romance, paranormal romance, urban fantasy, rom-com, everything in between. I'm pretty much everywhere and a frequent flyer over here. So that's me.
Nice. All right, Samantha.
Hi there, I'm Samantha Bryant. I'm a multi-genre writer, best known for my menopausal superhero series behind me on the wall here, which is dramedy in tone, and my lighter, more optimistic work. I also write a lot of short fiction playing in any sandbox they'll let me play in, and coming soon, you'll see my first romances.
Ooh, nice. That's awesome. All right, Mr. Myers.
Hi, I'm Dennis M. Myers. I write science fiction in the far future. I've also recently been dabbling in some really crappy fantasy, but that'll come later. And I just recently completed a successful Indiegogo campaign, which I guess is why I'm here.
Nice, awesome. You're here because we loved having you here. That's why you're here. There's no, and again, and then I don't know why it keeps messing that up. Okay,
That one wasn't my
Time
fault.
for another round of
no,
musical
it was not your
chairs.
fault. This is all on StreamYard to this one. All right, it won't let me change Dennis and Ariel. Oh, weird. All right, hang on.
Dennis, you get to introduce my sexy monsters.
Ariel, Dawn is the name of one of my main characters, so it kind of fits, except
I
that's
love
not
it.
her on the.
I love it.
Her twin is named Sunset, so
Yeah.
And now
All right.
Jim's writing menopausal superheroes, and I'm writing gnomes. There you go.
There you go.
All right.
Yeah,
Now we won't mess with it the rest of the time. Nobody leave, okay? You're all stuck here now. All right.
Okay.
Welcome everybody. So let's get this conversation started. I am curious. I know that some of us have dabbled in some of it, and some of us have dabbled in other of it, and some of us haven't dabbled in some of it, and all of that. So I am curious from your perspective. Has dabbling in what you've dabbled in, whether it be direct sales, Kickstarter, crowdfunding of any source, Patreon, has any of that stuck with you that you feel like is like your go-to? Have you felt like this is, or is it a combination of all of the things? How do you feel like what has worked for you best in this kind of context? Whoever wants to go, just jump in.
So, well, Joe, I mean, you've seen me do it plenty of conventions and whatnot with direct sales.
Yeah.
But I mean, looking at all of it, it all boils down to what are the revenue streams that will help support you in what you're doing, and number two, what are the things that are going to build up kind of a following for you overall? Because we're talking about books here. This is all about how do you build a following for the long term, and it really does boil down to who likes what you're doing. Because if they then like what you're doing, they like you, they're going to back your Patreons. They're going to back your Kickstarters. They're going to back, they're going to back buying your products. They're going to buy, they're going to come see you at conventions and all the rest of it. So to me, it really is not any one thing other than what are the things that you're comfortable with and you're ready to put the time in to make them work. Because any and all of them can work, but all of them take time and investment and things like that to make them work. And some of it's just a matter of the biggest thing here is time. If you're crowdfunding something and crowdfunding projects, especially now because there have been so many failed projects and people not getting what was promised and things like this. I always look at crowdfunded projects as basically pre-sales. It's trying to get pre-sales out the door, things that build an awareness in one channel, versus necessarily, or the other thing, the way to look at it is I'm testing to see, does anybody care about that project? A lot of the time that works really well for anthologies or special editions of things, is to use that crowdfunding really as a pre-sales to know what's the initial interest, if that makes sense. Versus direct sales is you've already got it in hand and you're using that to continue to build. If you're selling a series or things like that, it takes about 3 books to really start getting interest to start with, which is the first thing that you've got to look at. So once you've got that, what are you doing to continue to build on it? And that's really what the direct sales are for, are getting to know people, getting to know and meet fans, getting right, understanding what people do and don't like. And it's two very different channels. But fundamentally, both of them can help you. Just what are you comfortable with and ready to put the work in?
I'd like to add a little bit to that if I could. And first off, I want to start off by saying thank you very much, Jim, for your incredibly helpful advice in setting up my Indiegogo campaign. I think was directly responsible for it being successful. One thing that I had a great deal of success with in raising funds for my 5th book is the fact that I have 4 in print and I had copies on hand. As you can see, I'm missing it. I'm missing the 2nd volume at home because I sold out. Part of my Indiegogo campaign was offering books for sale that already existed, that I already had at hand, and they were by far the biggest draw. People would come in who had bought the 1st book, and they bought the package with getting the next 3 books and helping to fund the 5th book, which isn't part of the series, but it's the same universe.
So, I so far haven't run any kind of Kickstarter or Indiegogo or anything like that, but I've had my work included in projects that did. And I was thinking about what Jim said about time. And that's one of the reasons that I haven't done it, is because I don't write full time. I have a full-time day job and lots of responsibilities. And so I try to fit my writing life into about 2 hours a day. And if I take on one of those campaigns, that would easily be the 2 hours a day, which then means I couldn't write anything or edit anything or promote anything else. And so that's one reason I haven't pursued it. But I think it can be a really great way to get your work to a wider audience. My own approach so far has mostly been with in-person events. I've been a school teacher for a long time. I'm not anymore. I escaped. Woohoo! But in that, I learned how to talk to almost anybody. And that is very useful in those direct sales kind of situations. I can have a good conversation with almost anybody, and those often lead to good sales. And then if people like you, then they come back and look at more of your work. So that's what I've been doing so far. I'd be interested in those campaigns, but not until after I get to retire from the day job.
Ariel, you want to add on?
Yes. So I'm the dabbler that's dabbled in everything. So I do in-person events. I've done Kickstarters. I tried to get a Patreon off the ground. That didn't happen at all. So I do a little bit of everything. I just started doing TikTok shop, for a direct sales as well. And doing certain things on like Whatnot. I'm always looking for ways to diversify my platforms. I do write full time, and for better or for worse, I've got the massive ADHD and am super bubbly, if you can't tell, and love to chat. So that I think sometimes does work in my favor because I love to connect with people. So for me, I think it's a combination of all of them working together to kind of like build. When I did my Kickstarter for the Monsters of Ashwood, I kind of went into it blindly. I didn't really know too much. I had some folks who helped me, but really I'm a person who learns by doing. So I did the Monsters of Ashwood Kickstarter, and it was successful, even though I had no clue what I was doing and flying by the seat of my pants. And so through all of that, I kind of learned, kind of like how Jim said, where it was like, the interest, and going where the audience is. The audience, I think, on Kickstarter versus like BackerKit or Indiegogo, they're all kind of different. So it's kind of niche to be able to kind of like figure that out. Just like on TikTok shop, it's completely different. So with that being said, I like learning all of those different platforms, but it definitely does take time. And so I think you kind of have to like figure out, in a sense, what you are comfortable with. Are you, do you want to be more of an in-person, chatter, or do you want to, do it from behind the computer where it's a little bit safer for you and not, you don't have to like interact with people like real time. See, I love that, but not everybody does. But I also think that through doing things like Kickstarter or doing TikTok Shop or even just doing in-person events, you kind of get this feel of being able to read people and being able to figure out, what kind of stuff they're into, or, what you write that might interest them. And so by doing all of those events, I kind of get to practice it all the time, to being able to talk to people. And I do think that helps, whether it's an in-person event, whether it's an online event, or whether it's a crowdfunding event. For me, the most successful has probably been my direct sales, but I am in the process of running another Kickstarter. So we shall see how that goes.
Is that a bony hand hair clip in your hair?
It is. It's my skeleton clip.
That is cool. Just so everybody knows, I know that there's more than just Vanessa in the chat, but unfortunately, for some reason, I'm only seeing the three of the 5 posts that Vanessa posts. I have it up on my phone right now. I'm looking at the live chat, and for some reason, that's why you haven't seen me post anything. I know that Anita's out there, so hello, Anita. Hello, Sean. I saw Sean out there. I saw Dennis breaking the fourth wall. So just know that's the reason why you're not getting posted up here. I don't know what's going on. Could be my computer. I'm on my laptop today, so because I got a new computer and I haven't connected it yet. So I'm on my laptop, and I apologize. Oh, there you go. So now they're starting to populate a little bit.
I see them popping up now. I see Vanessa.
Yeah, it's a little delay. It's got to be it's got to be StreamYard then, because if you're seeing the same thing I'm seeing, then it's got to be StreamYard. So it's maybe not my computer. But anyway, I just wanted everybody to know that. So, and yes, Vanessa's a talker.
Technology, our friend, except when it's not.
There's Sean.
There's Sean. Yeah, you see now everybody's starting to pop up. Okay, so cool. Hopefully that'll solve our problems and we'll get going. All right. So if you do have a question and I don't see it, I have it up on my phone and I'll grab it and I'll ask it of the panel. Anyway, so that being said, it sounds like we're building our audiences is the crux of all of what we're trying to do, and how that audience responds to whatever you're doing seems to be how you dictate what you're going to do in those. I'm guessing that's fair to say for everybody. I think that's what everybody was kind of saying. So if you're a new author, what do you recommend they try first? Should they jump right into a Kickstarter? Should they do other things that maybe direct sales that's really ambitious. That's ambitious for all of us, and we're old hats at all this, But I mean, maybe not direct sale. I'm not talking about direct sales on a website. Direct sales in person, I think anybody can do if they're comfortable enough doing it. But I'm curious what your thoughts are on, if you're a newbie, where you should start with the sales aspect of things.
I think it depends on who you are. What kind of person you are and what your comfort levels are. I'm a person who runs introverted, not in that like social anxiety, can't talk to people way, but in the life will knock me on my butt if I've had to be in-person social for a long time. So I'm careful about, how much I'm putting myself out there in person and considering the energy flow. And, if you're more like the having to talk to people in person gives you terrible anxiety, then starting with selling your books at a table in person is a rough sell. It's going to be hard on you. So my recommendation for people like me who run more introverted is get yourself adopted by an extroverted writer and partner with them at things. For me, there's a guy named Darren Kennedy who I share a lot of publishing history with, and he's way more garrulous than me. And so I did a lot of table sharing with him, and he was very generous in kind of teaching me by showing me how to talk about my work where he'd talk about it, and then I could steal his lines. And that really helped me when I was getting started.
Nice. Very nice.
Well, I mean, and to Samantha's point, I mean, because we all run in the same sort of a crowd here. We all know the same people. But there is a benefit to, especially if you've only got one book in hand, doing things in a way to get attention is going to be hard. Or if you're even just in that position where you're trying to work on stuff, you're not even published yet. It really boils down to what are you comfortable with? But I will tell you, there is a great deal of value in going to events, going to conventions, going to conferences, workshops, things like that, so that you can meet other people in your community. It's not about meeting necessarily fans and whatnot. It's about meeting other people and learning from their experiences, what's going on, finding out what are they doing, what works, what doesn't work. But the other thing is this: just because something works for one person does not mean it's going to work for anyone else on the planet. There are other things that you can do, but I mean, again, there's a lot of value just to getting to meet people, know people, and have them kind of walk you through this life, because it is, being a writer, whether you're doing it, on the side as a hobby, you're trying to build it up to become a full-time writer. You are a full-time writer. There is very distinctly a way of life to doing this, because you're balancing a lot. So the first thing I would suggest is get to know people and form, to Samantha's point, form a good circle of people that you can partner with, you can learn with, you can grow with, that can help you learn from something other than just your own one view. Because for those of us who have been down that path, we also all had people that helped us learn, helped us grow. So that's the first thing I would say, is get into a circle even before you've tried to publish. While you're working on it, while you're just interested in it, there's a lot of value in just doing that first.
Yeah, I kind of want to piggyback off of that, because when I started writing, now 5 years ago, which is insane to think about, and I kind of entered the space, just the internet space and forums and groups and things like that. The community obviously really helped me figure out who I was as a writer, helped me figure out, my craft. And I did meet other authors who I then became friends with. And then eventually, they coaxed me into doing events. And I'm a naturally extroverted person, so I just was afraid to do events because I didn't know how I would sell. I didn't know how to do any of that stuff. They don't really give you an instruction manual on like, here's how to be an author. So when I did my first event, I had no clue what I was doing. And I just, my one author friend, my co-author, Quelty Fox, aka Penny Fox, was just like, do an event, figure it out, you will figure it out type thing. And I was like, well, all right, we're gonna jump off the cliff and do it. And I did. And that first event that I did, I met so many people. Again, I was very nervous, even being the extrovert that I am, because I didn't know anybody. I didn't know what I was doing. I brought so many copies of my books. I wasn't even sure what books to bring. And I met so many amazing people who all kind of took me under their wing and helped me and were like, congratulations, it's your first signing. This is awesome. And I sold $90 at my first signing that I didn't expect to sell. So, and I do think a lot of that boiled down to just going out there and just kind of like, not necessarily embracing my fear, but just embracing the possibility of meeting people and of networking and of, just being a part of the community. And ever since, I've continued to do different events and, smaller events locally or bigger events. I just got back from getting witchy with it last weekend. And every time I go, I meet new people, not just readers, but authors too. And it really kind of hones in that sense of community that's, I feel like, so important, not just in terms of selling, but in terms of just feeling that connection to other people who write, other people who read, and all that stuff, you internalize and it comes out in your work too. And like Joe and Jim said, you learn. You learn. I just had a conversation with an author that I was at Witchy with, and we're both on TikTok. And we were talking about different things that, that she does at her table, or stuff that I do on TikTok, or what do we do for special editions. And it's always interesting to see different people do different things. And so it really does help broaden the mind too, not just in a sense of selling, but in a sense of just like being part of the community too. So I would say if you're a new author, even if you have one book out, I go to events all the time and I see people with one book. It doesn't matter to me if you have one book or if you have 20, as long as you're there and you're engaged and you're going into it. I feel like not necessarily with a sense of, I have to sell this book, but just I want to meet people and I want to network. And I feel like when that energy shifts is when people can see that and they're more willing to go buy your book. So.
Okay, two things. First off, I can't believe that anybody coaxes you into anything, number one. And number two, here is the books that Jim is referring to.
I love that. Oh my gosh, I wish that was there. I knew about that one.
First edition, actually, I'm trying to do this. Okay, there's second edition, first edition. So I have both, and they are wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. And I've also attended all the lectures that Jim has done on those books themselves. And so they're fantastic. And if you do if you see that, you can definitely do that.
And it will be included in the October story bundle for the Kevin J. Anderson and Superstars puts out. So that starts October 1st from Story Bundle. So it's actually going to be included in that in Story Bundle this year.
Cool.
Dennis, did you want to add on to the conversation for us?
Yeah, I wanted to double down on the events. When I started writing, when I got to the point where I realized that I had a book and that I needed to learn how to get it published, because of my history going to conventions when I was much, much younger, I realized I could find writers at these little conventions. And I have this, I don't know about extrovert or introvert or whatever kind of vert, but my wife tells me I have this condition. It's called you talk too much. So while I'm in line checking into the hotel at Mysticon back in like 18 or 19, I met this guy named Patrick Dugan. He's a lot like me, software developer, author, very creative individual. And I mentioned that I'm writing a book and I want to get published. And he's like, great, you're one of us. And he took me, the first person he introduced me to was this older white hair guy in a kilt named Jim Nettles. Between Patrick and Jim, they introduced me to the community, and I was adopted by these folks before I was ever published. It was through them and through my own persistence that I found a publisher, got my books out. And my Indiegogo campaign, the vast majority of people who donated to the campaign were either people who had read my books because they bought a copy, either at a convention or in person, or family and friends who didn't buy anything from the campaign. They just donated money because they believed in what I was doing. Getting an audience. And then on the other side of that, most recently, I have seen great success by booktubers who are now starting to write books. One of the two of the big ones are Chance Dillon, who's a booktuber who invested a lot of money in getting professional editing, great covers. His book, Mercy, Tears of the Fallen, he's got the second book is coming out, and he's doing gangbusters. And then Talking Story, my personal favorite booktube channel, John and Jacob and Amy Minton, as a family, wrote a book called Discovery, which is like an eldritch horror. It is really awesome. It's a combination of genres almost. But because they've got 10,000 or more followers on the channel, their book immediately got success. And they've gotten a lot of exposure because of the following they already have built. So, yeah, I guess no one solution will work for everybody, and no solution won't work for somebody.
I didn't find you talked too much. We met at Con Carolinas earlier this year, and I didn't think you talked too much.
That's because you were there for like 30 seconds, Joe. One hug and gone.
Yeah, that's the sin of those things is I'm moving around quite a bit. So yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Somebody
No, I
else
was going to. No, go ahead. I'll come back to it. I'll get there eventually.
Okay. So we got some love for Mr. Darren Kennedy. As Vanessa says, he's awesome to share a table with. He was my partner at the first in-person sales table. Sean, I want to address this here. We'll come back to that in a second. And Samantha wants everybody to know who Darren Kennedy is, just in case you don't. And he does rock.
DarrenKennedy.com for those of you who look.
And Vanessa shares your pain, Dennis, having that condition of talking too much. So this is an interesting thing, right? Because this is a concern of young authors, especially authors who, one, are extroverted and have to make some choices, right? And then two, also, we're not all rich, so they do get expensive, especially for one day. So what's a good strategy for that for people who are getting into this at first? I mean, obviously, being a pro or guest at a con is a helpful idea, but they're not going to be that if they're a first-time author or just starting out, right? They're going to have to pay for the badge and everything like that. So what do you all recommend in terms of that aspect?
So what I did was, before I started doing events, like as an author, I went as a reader. So my very first event was one around here. My co-author was coming and I was going strictly to meet her, because I had never been to a book convention before. And I didn't even know up until that point that book conventions existed. I primarily came from the Comic-Con crowd. So, when she was like, "Hey, I'm coming to Pennsylvania," I was like, "For a book convention? Like, they have those?" And so I went to go meet her. And again, I wasn't, I was just going as a reader. And then through that, I walked into all the different rooms and met a bunch of other authors and started to talk. I was in the process of writing my one book, and I had a couple under my belt at that point, but I was still pretty new. So I was able to go as a reader and kind of network that way, where I was able to meet other authors and figure out, well, what do you do? What do you do for editing? And how did you do this? And how did you do that? And I didn't have like postcards or anything. I should have, but I didn't. So I will say, if somebody wants to do that, if they want to go to an event as a reader, bring like your little business cards or postcards or whatever, and just be like, even if you're just starting out and you have a Facebook page and not a website, it just helps, even if you're going to talk to other authors, not necessarily to talk to other readers, but like just swapping information and meeting people and seeing what's out there can kind of open your eyes up. So I would say, even if you don't want to jump into going into sell directly, go to an event as a reader, an event in your area. You don't have to like travel to go if you don't want to, obviously, because I know traveling to events can get kind of expensive. But also, people do direct sales and stuff like that on social media, on TikTok and Instagram, which is another really great way to kind of practice that whole vibe of like pitching your book or talking about your book or just getting comfortable talking to people. Especially if you're an introvert and you're not, like talking to people gives you anxiety. You can very easily do that online and, kind of structure when you can do it and when you have the energy to do it, and just kind of familiarize yourself with talking about your books or talking about books with other people. And I feel like that can help too.
So I wanted to jump on that to talk about volunteering, because that is a great way to get to go to something without it costing you, right? Because you're paying for it with your labor. So you learn about a small convention near you, you reach out, you see if they need volunteers, and they always do, right? They need people to direct, to set things up, to take things down, to just help the event go well. And generally when you volunteer, that doesn't mean that 100% of your time at the event is spent on whatever you volunteered to do, but you get admission and you get time when you're not in the middle of the part you volunteered to do, to go listen to panels or chat up an author at the bar or whatever it is you're going to do to try to make contacts. And you get to just be in the atmosphere in a way, especially for like a more introverted person. If you're there on a volunteer level, you have an official role, which is comforting, right? That sets the boundaries. And it's possible to be there and be very invisible and just get to observe, which is a nice way to stick your toe in if you feel nervous about putting yourself out there too much. But yeah, volunteer. Most organizations putting these things on need staff. And if they can get staff they don't have to pay with anything other than an admission badge, they love you.
Mm-hmm. That's a great suggestion.
Yeah, and to kind of build on that, I'm going to say a couple of things that I usually say this doing workshops, conventions, and everything else is depending on what your level of comfort is, you can spend time online, build relationships, and meet people virtually. This depends on what your level of comfort is. I'm an ambivert, right? I flip my switch back and forth. When I'm on the ground or whatever else, okay, great, turn it up, let me go, turn me loose. Then I need to go hide on the top of my mountain and hide for a while. But that being said, I know my personality. I know kind of the relationships I've built and what I've turned into. So in looking at doing events, they are expensive. But there's a couple of things I'm going to say. There's a difference between going and attending an event as just going to attend it, have a good time, pick up some books, meet some people, whatever the case may be, and going because you're interested in this as a professional event. Because the moment that you are going and saying, I'm going to go attend an event, whether it is your first time because you have a book to sell or you're trying to figure out the business or anything along those lines, this is no longer you're going and paying for fun. It's no longer, it's now something where you're investing time and capital into something you're trying to do, at least to some extent professionally. And so the way you approach doing an event should change. And the reason I say that is it's both because it goes from being an expense of, I'm going to go play, this is part of my entertainment budget, to this is now, you have to treat it like a business investment. And the other thing is be intentional when you get there about what are you trying to accomplish while you're there.
Mm-hmm.
And I know I'm taking all the fun out of it, but
Dennis, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I wanted to just, there needs to be a line drawn between the Comic Cons and the Galaxy Cons and those big, massive, celebrity-studded events and the smaller genre cons like RavenCon, PhilCon, Mysticon, Congregate, Con Carolinas,
Atomicon,
and
Atomicon.
Oh, sure, Atomicon. There are so many up and down the East Coast and all across the country, local conventions. Mm-hmm. And the one thing that they have in common is that their programming includes a writer's track. So what Jim was saying about investing in your future, yeah, when I went to learn. So I stuck to the writer's track and I went to every single thing that I could feasibly get to absorb and to learn and to come to understand it. It's invaluable.
Vanessa also recommends one-day craft fairs and artisan markets and pop-up events. And I will add also, the one thing you do at these events that is very paramount is you find your people. You find the people that you gravitate towards. You find the people that you are comfortable with. You start to develop bonds, and you'll find when you get to these things, the first day is a little awkward if you're new to everything. You're the only person you know. Then you start to then you just strike up a random conversation, or somebody strikes up a random conversation with you. Mm-hmm. If you're an introvert, we smell you in the water. So as an extrovert, I know if you're an introvert, I will take that chum and I will start to chew on it a little bit and talk to you a little bit. I know Jim does it too. Jim is actually very good at it. Jim is probably the best person to learn from on that aspect. But
nobody ever said I was a role model. Nobody.
So
I didn't go that far. I just said you're good to learn from. Okay. But yeah, and when you strike up those conversations, and we'll offer to for you to tag along and see where we're going and doing that thing, and you start to develop a little group and a little forum, and what that does is for the next con, you see if they're going to this con and you're going to this con, share a hotel, share a chance to drive together, and that takes the cost down. And share a table. If you want to learn from somebody, go with somebody who has a big table and they're looking to split the cost with you, and then you can put your one little corner together, and then you can see how they operate. You have a front row seat to see how somebody else operates in that respect, and doing that, I think, also number one, saves you in cost, and number two, you start to find where your comfort zone is and the people you are. You will, I guarantee you go to these events enough, you will find your people. It is just inevitable. Because you are one of them.
Before we leave stuff that doesn't cost much, I also wanted to mention, go to your library. Go to, especially if there's an indie bookstore near you, hit the bookstore, because going to those events, usually admission is completely free. If you're at the bookstore, they're hoping you'll buy the book, so it might cost you as much as a book. But if you're going to an event for an author you admire, you might want the book anyway. But my local public library was invaluable to me when I was trying to move from being a hobbyist writer to somebody who did this more seriously and tried to make a living from it. And, I met James Maxey at a workshop he was giving at the library. And that's how I learned that superhero prose fiction is even a thing, right? So it's because I went to the library for a workshop from James is why you have this book and the rest of the series. It's, and it didn't cost me anything because it was at my library.
And I want to jump on that because I actually volunteer at my library for the writers group. So we have a lovely little writers group, and people can come whenever. We have a kids group and we have an adult group. And so I go there twice a month and it's free. You know what I mean? I go there not necessarily to help people, but just to be around other authors and share ideas and, bounce back and forth. So yeah, that's always a great option.
Writers groups is another good option. Find a writers group in your area as well.
Yeah, I mean, I've talked to a lot of writers groups. We've done, we may one of these days started back up doing books and beer again, where we take over a bar or take over, pub, restaurant, something like that, and have writers in. We do readings and do panels and BSs live with a pint or two, in hand. And, there's always a lot of different ways to go and meet people. I mean, a friend of mine, we do an art event, art crawl in Columbia every year. And this year I sat on the corner and had books out, and a bunch of friends came by and we sat there and drank mimosas and sold a stack of books and BS'd all day long and hung out in the sun. I mean, it's not just the conventions. You can find a reader anywhere. I have paid plenty of bar tabs with that book that's right next to me.
Nice.
So,
awesome.
Have fun with it.
Yeah, for sure. All right. So let's this is a good jumping off point. We'll take a little break here. And that being said, myself is celebrating the 30th anniversary of a film you might be familiar with, a Tim Burton opus called Ed Wood. And it is about a filmmaker who's probably one of the more controversial filmmakers in independent cinema, or polarizing, I should say, probably the most polarizing. He's not very controversial, but that being said, here's some films you might enjoy if you're a fan of Tim Burton's Ed Wood, and then we'll be back and talk some more. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Indie Film Connection. I'm your host, Joe Compton, and I have indie films for you that you might enjoy if you're a fan of Tim Burton's biopic film about one of the most controversial filmmakers in independent films history, Mr. Ed Wood. The first film I have for you is called American Movie. In this cult favorite documentary, Mark Borchardt, an aspiring filmmaker from the working class Wisconsin background, is set on finishing his low-budget horror movie, despite a barrage of difficulties. Plagued by the lack of cash, unreliable help, and numerous personal problems, Mark wants to complete the film to raise funds for a more ambitious drama. With the assistance of his humbling but loyal friend Mike Schenk, Mark struggles to move forward, making for plenty of bittersweet moments. You can find this movie right now for free on Tubi. The next movie I have for you is called They Call Me Bruce. A goofy Korean who finds his life hopelessly complicated with people continually confusing him for Bruce Lee is tasked by mobsters to bring some bags of flour across the country. This movie spawned a sequel called They Still Call Me Bruce. But this movie is available for free right now on Tubi. The next film I have for you is called Starring Jerry as Himself. It is a movie that I had the pleasure of seeing during Slamdance. It is a pseudo-mockumentary about a retired immigrant named Jerry Hugh who gets recruited to be an undercover agent for the Chinese police. As if his family recreates the events on film, his three sons discover a darker truth about this recruitment. This movie is available right now on Amazon Prime. And finally, the last film I have for you is called The Room. It may be the most talked about and controversial cult classic film of all time. It is the dreamscape of one Tommy Wiseau. And it is about Johnny, a successful banker who lives happily in a San Francisco townhouse with his fiancée Lisa. One day, inexplicably, she gets bored of him and decides to seduce Johnny's best friend, Mark. From there, nothing will ever be the same again. But this movie is available for free right now on Tubi. Just remember, everybody, that beauty is in the eye of the beholder. And someone else's trash might be someone else's treasure. I hope you keep that in mind whenever you're exploring independent films to see. And we'll see you next time on the Indie Film Connection. Bye for now. I didn't do a very good job of explaining why those films are associated with Ed Wood. All those films break the fourth wall in terms of the filmmaker actually jumping in. There's a great scene in They Still Call Me Bruce, which is the sequel, but They Call Me Bruce has the same thing. He goes to LA to be an actor. He wants to be a famous actor, and then he gets caught up in all this Bruce Lee nonsense. But there's a famous scene in They Still Call Me Bruce where the director actually jumps in front of the camera and drops the camera on the ground because he was trying to save Bruce from getting beat up. And it's just fascinating, these interpretations that when the filmmaker puts themselves into these movies. So that's why that was the relatable aspect of that movie. All the other ones are kind of self-explanatory, but and Sean says he loves They Call Me Bruce. It's an experience, yes sir. And then Samantha says, I heard about The Room. I'll have to check it out. Living where I live in the Bay Area, The Room is very, very. Tommy lives in San Francisco, so he's very polarizing all the time. He's always at like these local screenings and stuff like that, and he's a character. Let me just put it that way. All right. I want it kind of for anybody who's done crowdfunding, who's done direct sales. Jim mentioned this, and I think it's very apropos and true that what one works for one person doesn't work for everybody. But is there something you can universally share that maybe will help a first timer or somebody who's jumping into these ideas that you wish you knew going into them?
I'd say a mistake I made early on was signing up too soon to do a table by myself, because I looked around and that's what other authors were doing. And sitting there by myself when I only had one book to sell was a nightmare for me. And as far as if you're just doing math, return on investment, absolutely not profitable. I definitely should have started with doing some kind of group event, partnering with somebody before I jumped in that way.
I think for me, it would be going into the Kickstarter. I did my Kickstarter, like I had planned to do it for about a year before I did it. And I tried to, put myself into groups and talk to other people and do all the research and everything. So I think what I would have liked to have known, like before I did it, was to expect, of how much work that it was actually going to be. And I kind of want to echo on what Samantha said earlier about, like that could easily take up like your 2-hour like writing budget or your writing time, I should say, because there is so much that goes into it, and the expectation of what you're putting in your special edition, or if you're doing like a limited release, there's a lot that goes into it. And it took me about a year to plan the entire thing, not only just to plan it, but to budget for it. So I think that is one of the big things I would say, if, especially because Kickstarter and crowdfunding is so popular and so many people are doing it. And there's all these special editions, there's limited editions, there's, people are putting them together for their first book. I would say the biggest takeaways there is to really plan for it. Plan for a year, figure out how you're going to do it, how you're going to budget it, but also plan on having your book done first before you do your Kickstarter. So because nothing is harder than running this thing and then having to write the book and then having to deliver on those timelines and all of that. So that's my big takeaway.
I think what I wanted to throw out there is, first off, it's not something I personally had a problem with, but in general, don't be a dick. The people you're talking to on the elevator are publishers and authors and people who can help you. Be a nice person. But the big thing that I wish I had known a few years prior, back when I had more money, is just how much I would need to invest in advertising. I think one of the biggest things that held my Indiegogo back is that I couldn't afford advertising. I couldn't get the word out beyond my own little local group. And I, thank the stars, my local group was just big enough to push us over the edge.
So I'd say there's probably two things. One of which is, and I mean, I've had this same thing too, is don't have unrealistic expectations of your readers, number one. Because again, it's really easy to set expectations of readers that are not realistic. And that goes to both your storytelling, and that goes to how you build relationships with fans. That goes, again, at the end of the day, we are very invested in what we've built and what we've created, but for especially avid readers, they read a lot, they consume a lot. It takes a lot to become one of their favorite authors, to tell one of their favorite stories. And so our expectations of readers can be much higher than is realistic. And the other thing I'll say is, when on the crowdfunding front, I did a show with Oriana Leckert, who was the director of books for Kickstarter. She's come in at DragonCon for the last couple of years at the business workshop I do, talks about Kickstarter. I did a show with her several years ago on Creating Prose. So if you want to look at how Kickstarter wants you to build a campaign, it's right there. She's told you how to do that. But one of the things, and Dennis and I have discussed this, and I've talked about this with a lot of other folks, is understand what each platform does as a crowdfunding platform, what it doesn't, what its limitations are, what its costs are, what they will and won't actually let you fund, and how you can go about it. And one of the things that will bite you at times is you won't realize until you've done it, you've broken one of the covenants that goes along with it. And most of these platforms are a lot more strict about it these days than they used to be, for a lot of different reasons. But understand, things like one of the big differences between Kickstarter and Indiegogo. Kickstarter, if the project doesn't fund, you don't get paid. Indiegogo, you're going to collect whatever you raise. So, depending on what you do with Kickstarter, that can be a good way of protecting yourself, because if it doesn't fund, that's a good test. You don't get committed to anything. Indiegogo, okay, you raised $50. You can either give that back or you can go on with the project. This is part of the reason I encourage looking at it as pre-sales when you can, more so than actually having to pay for the project. Now, in some cases, that's just not possible. You're doing the crowdfunding to fund making the project happen. This happens with a lot of small publishers, things along those lines, to really figure out what's the project that you want to do. But diving into and having too high of an expectation out of your crowdfunding is also one of those things that will catch you. Like Dennis was saying, part of his biggest ways of raising the campaign was selling existing books. If you don't have a book in hand, it's going to be really, really difficult for you to successfully fund something unless there's another bigger reason for that to work. Like you already have a big social media following or something else like that people are going to come along and say, okay, I'm going to back the book because I know this person, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Along the lines of being a dick too, I'll add in, as somebody who walks frequently through tables and talks to everybody, if you're not standing up and engaging me, and you're just sitting there and you're kind of, trying to not be seen, you're not doing yourself any favors. But also be cordial. Don't be a jerk.
You're supposed to
nothing
be at
turns
your
me off
table.
faster.
When you have a table, you're supposed to be. When you have a table, you're supposed to be.
Well, I didn't say be. I didn't say be at your table. I just said be. Be engaging around your table, right? I mean, if you roam around, that's great. Whatever. The idea is to engage the audience to want to entice them to come to your table, or at least be. Pick something
right.
up.
It's not your moment to passively wait to be approached. You have to be the approacher. Yeah.
I always like to say, I always like to say I have like stuff to draw people into my table because most people do. But one of the things that I like to do is I have tarot cards that you can get a free tarot card, and it encourages people to pick them up and read, and we can talk about it. They can share it. And then through that sharing, I'll just be like, so, hey, what do you like to read? I try to be as organic and, genuine with people as possible, too. I think that's part of it as well, is that it's not just someone there to buy your book, but it's someone there to talk to, someone there to connect with. So
nothing drives me crazier than going to the America's Murder at Dragon Con and getting on the getting on the artist alley and watching all these guys just sit there in their pads drawing all the time, and they're literally sitting sideways to their table, like perpendicular to their table, and they've got their big pad and they're just drawing. And I literally say hello to every person that I try to, and I'll get a nod instead of a hello. I'm like, dude, what are you doing? It's the reason why I'm the only person at your fucking table is because you're not talking to anybody. Yeah. That's why everybody next to you has 60 people at the table, and you have me. So, but yeah, it's crazy. It drives me nuts. The first time I ever experienced that, I was meeting Bobby Nash for the first time, and Bobby had a bunch of people around him, and there was like 3 guys drawing around him, and I'm saying hello to them, and they're just kind of nodding. They're not doing anything, and it's like, and they got stuff to sell. It's not like they're just sitting at a table, empty table, right? And it's like, I'm like, that drove me crazy. That just absolutely drove me nuts.
So, and if you're not willing to do that kind of engagement, you need a friend. Early on,
those tables aren't cheap either. That's the other thing, right? It's like, it's crazy. Anyway, all right. Well, that was a great discussion. Let's jump into the meat of the day and talk a little bit about what's going on at Go Indie Now. It's pretty much the same old. and this is all my fault. This is nobody else's fault. But we do have some things going on, and you'll recognize a few of them as we've kind of said them for the last couple of weeks. And I will caveat as I get down further toward the end of the week why this is happening. But anyway, so Monday night, Vanessa is back with a conversation at cocktail. She has Lisa Yazik with her. This is going to be a fantastic conversation. Been waiting for it all month. I'm real excited for it. So everybody come on Monday night at 9 p.m. Eastern and check that out. It's going to be an awesome conversation. I had a little bit of a conversation with Lisa. It's pretty awesome. And then Daniel Myers, another Myers, different Myers, Daniel Myers, will be joining Juliette Rose for First Time for Everything. Season 3 keeps on rolling. Daniel has created this epic fantasy world, and his book Alejandra Rising is a really good epic fantasy, and they're going to talk about all of that, creating world building and things of that nature. I'm sure on Tuesday. That is at 8 p.m. Eastern. That's live again. And yes, I promise, I absolutely 1,000% promise that Page Numbers with Bob Magoo's Charles McFall episode will air on Wednesday. I literally am just going through it one more time to make sure that every dotted my I's and crossed my T's. Listen, these things I want to put them out there pristine. I didn't want to just rush it out there. I could have got it out this week, but I took my time, and because it's really incredible, the offer, and I'm about to show you why it's really incredible. Because for all of you today, just to show you that I'm not just saying this and it's not happening. This is a little piece of what I've already edited of the show for you, so you get a sneak preview of today's of Page Numbers right now, and it's relevant to the conversation we're having. So here you go.
That's kind of the goal, the dream, right? The dream is what we create will pay us every day. The dream is all those beautiful books behind you will be like the Stephen Kings of meth heads, and just you're like, I can't find enough places to put my money. That is obviously the dream for all of us.
Yeah.
The goal is to make a splash and enough of an impact, even if you don't realize it, with your media, whatever you create, that something else you love comes along and hopefully also pays you.
So we're talking numbers. Let's dive into some numbers here. And podcasting is a very different game from books, obviously. Like I said, we mostly talk books on here. Books, you're selling, you have a physical product, or at least a digital product,
sure,
if it's an ebook, that you are selling. That is the expectation. But podcasts, yes, there are some that you can pay for, or you can pay for subscriptions to different networks, or things like that. But for the most part, podcasts are free.
Yes.
So how has monetizing podcasts, what does that look like for you over the years? Have you had any
more, sir?
Yeah. Have you had much success there?
I would say yes. It does depend on how you define success. The bar graph of my career has kept going up. And while I have not signed that endorsement deal, that brand deal, that commercial deal to where I'm getting paid X amount of money per episode, what I have done is made, again, a bigger splash than I ever thought I did. And I have done some ads. I have been able to get into some ad programs, run some ads, make some money that way. We built a Patreon that was fairly successful with the Pokemon Go podcast. There's a story behind when you swap up what you do. You might.
So there you go. A little taste of what you will expect on Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern. It will drop on Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, or I will drop, one of the two. So, but I guarantee you it'll drop on Wednesday. So I promise you that. And just to be fair, I gave you a little taste there. And then Saturday we have Saving a Seat with myself and Brian Tan. That will also happen on Saturday, I promise. And it's great. There's some really great movies in there. As baseball season wraps up, it's kind of cool that we have a baseball movie. It's a very interesting movie, and on top of that, it's not just about baseball. But that's happening on the Go Indie Now Minute, and that's what we've got going on this week. And then right now, we're going to do the Epilogue, everybody. I have a little bit of sampling from every person here, and I'm randomly going to pull it up here. And something new that we're adding to this, if you like what you're hearing about the book I'm reading, you can, as you'll see right here, click on the little left-hand corner, top left-hand corner there. The top left-hand corner for my screen. Maybe it'd be on the right for your screen. I don't know if it's mirrored or not. But you'll see the QR code. If you tap that QR code, it'll take you directly to the book that I'm about to read about. So every person who appears on the show will get a little QR code from here on out. And I have one for every single person here today. And this is The Final Assembly by Mr. Dennis Myers. And it is it's just a little awesome excerpt. So let's dive in. Here we go. Let's see if I can get any better at this today. All right. Later that afternoon, as Elliot was reviewing business reports, he was interrupted. Director Humble, said his AI assistant, Bit, you have a message from your wife, Lauren Ortega Bollinger. Store it, and I'll listen to it later. Negative, this is an urgent message. Having verified you are available by definition set forth, playback begins now. He cringed. Laura appeared larger than life, towering over Elliot. 2 silver crescent moons floated above her head. Elliot, I have seen the latest exposition report. You spent $650 million on a bottle of whiskey? She put her fists on her hips. Whiskey. Elliot, are you mad? My first impulse is to have you medically evaluated, but I know better. If this is an investment, I'll expect an estimate from you of the potential return, along with your documented justification. It is simply you're buttering your ego. Be man enough to say so. Sorry, everybody. Then move to your expense to your personal ledger. I expect better of you, Elliot. The image evaporated in a swirl of red mist. Come on, other page. Show up so I can read you. There we go.
It was there for a moment.
I had it. All right. Bit, said Elliot. Transfer the Bogson black label purchase to my personal ledger and record my reply. Acknowledged. My dear Lauren, my ego buttering should never have been placed on the main budget. I have transferred it to the personal ledger. That was entirely my oversight. Every once in a while, when I feel I have accomplished or will see accomplish something of great significance, I feel worthy of a reward. This uniquely rare bottle of whiskey was meant to be that reward. Elliot shook his head. However, it turned out to be something entirely different. I have yet to ascertain its full meaning. I expected to purchase something. I expected to purchase some excellent whiskey, but I appear to have purchased a mystery instead. Needless to say, the ultimate value of any mystery is impossible to predict. So this is all on me. Give my love to our daughters and grandchildren. I saw Ella hiding behind you in that picture you sent, and it's adorable. I do miss you all. End of recording and send. Acknowledged, said Bill. Warning, your personal ledger has issued a low balance alert. Elliot sighed. Of course it did. All right. Sorry, Dennis. I tried.
I didn't drop that much on the whiskey. Let's be honest.
Yeah. The setup for that is.
So now we're going to. Go ahead, Dennis. I'm sorry.
I was going to say the setup for that is that Elliot is the second most powerful executive at the second most powerful corporation in the corporate federation, and you see who's really in charge.
And Samantha says she tried She tried the QR code and it works like a dream. So there you go, everybody. So it does work. I did also test them before I put them up there, but yeah. All right. So now we're going to be going through the change. Miss Samantha Bryant's beautiful, beautiful, beautiful book, which I've actually read. So hopefully I can get through this pretty good. Let's see. All right. Helen willed a ball of fire into her hand and made it roll. She teased it from one hand to the other, rolling it across her arms and laughing. She balanced it on one finger like Wilt Chamberlain and made it spin. First one direction, then another. She made a second and a third ball and tried to juggle them whenever she dropped one in the grass, she stomped out the small fire with her bare foot and made a replacement. When she tired of the fire juggling, she decided to try other shapes. She made a sort of spear, a long, thin flame. She bent it around itself until it was a ring. She spun it in the air and then around one wrist like it was a hula hoop. She thought about spinning it around her waist, but then knew the shirt would never survive it. She didn't want it to end up naked in her daughter's backyard. God, this was fun. She hadn't had this kind of fun in years. She lined up a couple of beer cans and soda bottles in various parts of the yard, and making her finger into a gun, shot them with small blasts of fire. Pew pew. See, I added sound effects, everybody. That was not written. I just added that. All right, leaving smoking piles of melted tin can and broken glass. She was trying to decide what to do next when she froze. Stopped by a small squeak. The sliding door squeaked in its track. Helen turned just in time to see her wide-eyed daughter poking her head out the small opening she had just made. Her voice sounded almost childlike, like she was afraid. Mom? There you go. Everybody go check out Going Through the Change. All right. Next to torture is Miss Ariel Dawn. This is the Monsters of Ashwood, everybody. This is the one I'm really looking forward to.
Here, Joe.
All right, here we go. Lights are on. Somebody is here in my house. No one's been inside this house in ages, not until the other day. Well, unless you count the youngsters that thought trespassing on my property was a good idea. I might be corporeal. I might not be corporeal anymore, but I am still scary. Well, I wanted to be, that is. Technically, I can be anything I want. Your sweetest dream, your most brutal nightmare. The figment of all of your fears. The angel you think you're praying to. Unless I'm touching someone with strong gifts or strong beliefs, I won't be able to take a solid form. I need blood, flesh, and faith to materialize into my human form. And even then, it needs to be constant. And they always run. The humans that visit my home. No one stays long enough to let me touch them. And even if they did try, or even if they did, they'd surely run the moment they saw me. The looming dark shadow with beady red eyes. The demon that comes to drag them down to hell. Except hell exists between the realm of the living and the dead, and being confined to a house you can't leave or can't touch, forced to remain a ghost, a shadow, or nothing more. And then it ends mom too. I think that's a typo, right? I think
that is, yeah.
So I was copying and pasting everybody. Sorry. All right. So there's that, and everybody go check out Monsters of Ashwood. I hope I'm giving everybody enough time to click on the QR links here as I fumble around anyway. All right, now it's really time to butcher something. Here we go with the gnome's busybody. Come on, let me get down to the QR codes there. Come on, QR codes. Where are you? Where'd they go? Uh-oh.
I can start singing, life forms, tiny little life forms. Where are you?
Okay. You can do that if you'd like. I'm just trying to
Nobody
get
wants me to sing.
I don't know what's going on. Okay. That's gonna be the Monsters of Ashwood QR code. But let me try and get this back up here. Everybody, hang on. Let me see if I can zoom out. Zoom over. There we go. Okay, that's gonna help me. There's Gnome's business. Gnome's buddy's business. Everybody. All right. Oh, God damn, you had to have fucking names that I can't even think about pronouncing.
Yes, I did. Yes, I did.
All right. Let's see. Sorry, Jim, ahead of time, but Tink nodded
Close
and
enough.
waved for her to come in. A stone from our old settlement in the old world. Telvin gave it to me when we fled here so that I would always have a little piece of home, she sniffled. Why did it have to be him? No one else understood her, she thought. The locals never liked her, but they had tolerated her because of him. Everybody loved Tolvin. Somebody didn't. Rains motioned to ask if Rains motioned to ask if she could have a seat. She ignored the comment and pointed at the small chair that looked uncomfortable from across the room. Is there any chance it was some sort of accident? Now, look here. The gum-eyed reappeared across the room behind the chair. I'd never heard of such a thing happening. Geology is my specialty. I've done planning for half of this village since we've been here. All of the tunneling and construction. We've even been working on running new water sources to the human town. Magic then Rains looked at the less torturous position. Come on, pop back up. Oh, there you go. Does that man have a way to turn a person into stone? No. Well then, some sort of magic it is. She removed her pointed hat and revealed a conical beehive of graying brown hair. She raised a sausage-like finger into the air for emphasis, but not ours. Whose then? She nervously tumbled the rock between her thick, nimble fingers. I've given it a lot of thought, and I have no idea. There you go, everybody. There's nobody's business. All right. So I read them all. You're welcome to comment and just trash me. It's totally fine. But
I have to say it was kind of hilarious.
I think I'm getting better. I think I'm getting better. But
you don't sound at all like how I picture Helen sounding in my head.
And I went to make sure I could find a clip that had some of the most complex words in it for you, just for.
I figured you would. And just for that, Jim, you win. You get to tell everybody the magic words today. So, all right.
Is this really winning?
Exactly. Yep. That's what you get. All right, let's tell everybody where we can find everybody and get ourselves out of this mess that I've created. All right, Mr. Myers, tell everybody where they can find you, sir.
Okay, I have a website. It's automatedempire.com. You can find links to all of my books. I have T-shirts, and oddly enough, I have coffee cups as well. Automatedempire.com.
That's awesome. I'm getting one of those for sure. That looks like a cool mug. I love mugs. Mm-hmm. All right. There you go. Samantha, tell everybody where they can find you.
I try to make it easy. If you know my name, you can find me. I'm at samanthabryant.com, or you could just Google Samantha Bryant author so you get me instead of the actress. And you can find me and my menopausal superheroes and my horror.
Awesome. All right, Ariel?
Author Ariel Dawn. You can find me at www.ariel-dawn.com. You can find me on pretty much every social site there is, including TikTok. And I actually do have a giant direct book sale tonight on TikTok. So nice. I will be down there at 7 p.m. Eastern. So you can find me there.
Awesome. Everybody go check that out. All right. Mr. Nels, tell everybody where they can find you, and then give us the magic words to get us out of here.
Sure. Easiest thing to do is go to jamespnettles.com. That'll link you out to most of at least the important stuff. You can go to creatingpros.com to hop on the podcast and the show I did with Oriana. If you go to Author Essentials Workshops, you're going to see, you'll soon be seeing the new show list and the new workshop list coming up. Right now I just signed, so I will be teaching at Saga again next year, which will be in February. So you can look up the Saga Writers Conference for that one. And again, the business book will be included in the story bundle that goes live on October 1st, which I think is Tuesday. That would help if I looked and paid attention to the calendar, but close enough. But that'll go live on Tuesday if you want the business book, or of course you can come by and pick it up. And if you want signed copies, I'll be shameless enough. I can't talk anymore. I'm undercaffeinated. I'll be shameless enough to sign them for you. If you want to come check out the shows and stuff we do at Continual Convention, you can find us on both YouTube and Facebook. Facebook group is pretty active, and you'll be able to get to everything there. And other than that, it's always time to go indie now.
Bye, everybody.